Sir, you are in mute. Might be we are unable to listen what you're saying.
Sorry. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you can start.
Okay. So, so in the last session, what we did, we created an index.html file, and in this index.html, we had a div with ID app, and we have uh, added the CDN for the app for the view.js, and we have the script app.js script file. So JavaScript file, in the JavaScript file we have a view constructor, and we pass the options object. The way we create the view instance is like we add a options object, and in the options objects we have an el option, and this el option, uh, the value of this el option is the app is the div with id app. That is, whatever is inside this template will be rendered inside this div with id app. So actually it will replace the whole thing which has been written inside the div with id app. And then we have a data option. So we had a data called current task, which represents the current task, and we have binded this current task with the with with the with this input box. That is the value of the input box, and the current task is in two-way binding. That is, if you change the input of this box, this current task will change, and if you change this current task, this input the value of this input box will change. And we also have a button add
Sir,
task.
I have two doubts in this
Yeah.
regarding span and at the rate click.
Span.
That HTML tag span, it is taking task name, it is
uh,
displaying in there. Yeah.
yes.
And second is that click on function is equivalent to at the rate click. Right?
Yeah, so b on is equivalent to, either you can write b on, either you can write b on, or you can use the at the rate. It's the same thing. That is shortcut for the b on.
Sir, in the li tag v4, so here also you indicated v on, so both are like representative of view, am I right, sir?
Yeah, these are the directive which is provided by the view.
Okay.
Okay, so if what this v4 does, let's say you have a component, let's say we have a li component, and we want to repeat this component multiple times, and we want to iterate over some elements. Like here we have a task, and we want to create the task in the li for all these elements, so we can iterate over this task using the v4. It's like the way you like create a loop in any programming language. This is similar to this. The only difference is you are using it as a property in the li. Like, it's not that you will only use with the li, you can use it with any kind of element, html element. So that will be so no matter which element on which you are using, that will be repeated the number of times this before loop will run. Like, this before loop will run two times because this task array has two elements, so it will render two li elements. And you can like decouple this element inside this task by, so whatever the value of the value of the element inside this array will be stored inside the task. That is, this task will, in the first iteration, this task will represent the first task, and in the second iteration it will represent the second task. And index is the index, like in the like usual manner. Index means the index of this task is 0 and index of this task is 1.
So
So-
like I cannot
Sir,
use-
is it required to give that index there? Can't
No,
we
no,
do directly
it-
V4
yeah, yeah.
task? Yeah.
We can remove this, but I have added the index because we are going to use the index when we will implement the remove functionality of the li element, because we want to like add the delete functionality in our application. So we'll need the index in order to indicate the view that which element I want to remove from the list.
So
And
like,
second thing is that V model in line number 11,
Yeah.
there is a V model current task.
Yeah.
Already input placeholder is there and bottom and second line button is there. Why
Yeah.
we require that V models are there?
See, what happens, so this input box will have some value. Placeholder and value are the two different things. Placeholder is just the placeholder for that input box. That will be, this is not the value for the input. This is just an indicator that what kind of thing the application is expecting from the user.
Okay. All the input which we kept, it will come to current task by assigning V model to that, right?
Yeah. So the input type of element will has a property called value. So what we are doing, we are binding this current task with with the value attribute of this input box, and we are binding it in two way. Like two-way binding means if we will change this current task, that input, the value of that input box will change, and if we'll change the input value, then the current task will change. I showed it the last session, I'll show it again. So I've already started. I'll go to the document. So if I will open this console, so if you will go to the view, you can see that we have a root element and we have the current task. And this task is just a placeholder. Whatever you will write will be the value of this input box. Let's say I am writing. So if you see, the current task value is null. See here, where my pointer is null. And if I type task, you can see that the value of the current task has changed. That is, the value of this input box is associated with this current task. And let's say I will change it to task 3 and save it, then you will see that the input box value has also changed. That they are in binding, they are in sync.
No, by adding a will it take, sir, already task 3 is there. So
I didn't understand what you said.
by clicking that add button, will it take the task 3?
Yeah, and it will take the task 3 and add it here in the list. So I'll
Sir,
just
and one
explain it
more
here.
thing,
Yeah.
line number 4 and line number 13. After
Line
before
number-
div and after div, there is a some separate column. No? What it defines? Line number 4 and line number 13.
This is the template.
No. Before div, there is a some small column is there.
Yeah, this one.
Before div.
Yeah,
Just
this one. This
before
one.
that angle bracket starts.
This one.
Yeah. What is the significance? That
See, if you want to create a multi-line template, multi-line string. Multi-line string means if you will use only the single quote or double quote, you cannot expand that string in multiple lines. So if I change it like this, okay, I'm just adding the same thing. So So you can see that it will start throwing error because you cannot write the multiple line string using single quote or double quote. You will have to use this symbol. This is just above the tab button in the laptop.
It is for
You
all
want
the
tilde.
yeah. It is only for the templates, not
Yeah,
for
but
data, not for methods and all, right?
no. If this is a string. This one is a string, and this is like this is taking multiple lines. So you cannot write a string which takes multiple lines using the single quote or double quote. You can create a string with the multiple lines using this tilde sign. This sign, and this is just a string,
Okay, right.
but it has more than one line. So what I have done is like we are remodeling the current task with this input box. And when we are adding this, and whenever some user clicks on this button, it, and this button has a event handler click. So whenever some user will click on this button, this add task function will run. And what this add task function does, it takes the current task. So whatever the user has written inside the box, input box, it will take that current task and push it inside this task. And once this task has been pushed inside this tasks, the like that will be rendered inside this UL. Because now the task has 3 elements. So the idea is like you can, in the view, you can separate your template, your markup with the data. So this is the data and this is the template, and this is the method. Method means you can, if you want to do some operation, you can define functions, and using those functions you can manipulate the data. And because the view is reactive, so based on the data it will change the template.
So sorry to interrupt you. So basically, whatever functions we need to manipulate the data, we declare it in the methods,
Right.
and whatever data that needs to be modified or manipulated should be declared in the data.
Data, yeah.
Or else, if we declare it outside, it can't be manipulated.
No.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So see, this is the object. This is a single object, and inside the object we have multiple attributes. So this object has EL attribute, data attribute, and methods attribute. And data is itself a object. This data is a object, and this object has multiple properties, like current task and tasks. So these are the reactive properties. Reactive properties means if you'll change this data, that will be reflected inside this template. So this is the markup for your data. That is, this is the data, and data will be represented as in the form of this template.
Okay, sir.
Sir, and
Understood.
task
Yeah,
3 we have added there, where it is
Yeah.
stored actually, that required to be pushed into tasks. So
Yeah.
we can see only in the view console, or it will be added somewhere like in database.
No, the database you will have to integrate. If you want to store it in the database, you will have to make a request to the server to add that data.
Okay.
So we will be discussing that thing also, but not in this session. This session is only like based for the view. Like we will discuss how we can make a request to the server and store the data, and how we can get the data from the server and display it here. We will discuss about that, but not in this session.
Sir, Sir, can you explain components and watches
Yeah, I will explain that.
and getter and setter too?
So this is getter and setter is not, it does not belong to this view. They are like related to the view X.
Like Sir has explained in the with component with watcher in the week 4, right?
So we'll discuss about the watches in this session. So now we know how to add the data in using this task, using this UI. So let's say I'll start with the task 4, and you can see that this will be added. Okay. Now what we will do, we want to add the functionality of delete the task. So how do you add the event handler, the click event handler in the view? We have already used it, click. So I will use the click here, click, and I will add a method here, delete task, and that I will add a method here, delete task. So whenever someone will click on this button, this function will run, because we have associated this delete task with the click event. And now we want to remove the element which has the index, which has the current index. Like you can see that we are also extracting the index from this array. So what we will do, we will pass this index to this function, and we can catch this index here. And what we will do now, we will remove that element from the array, and that will be reflected in the UI. So what we will do, this dot tasks dot splice, and then index 1. So what this splice method does, it will go to the index. So the task is an array, and we have passed an index, so it will go to that index. Let's say we have passed the 0th index, so it will go to the index 0 and remove one element from there. So if you will write 2, it will remove 2 elements from there.
Sir, I have one more doubt. Actually, at click add task, we didn't kept parentheses, and delete task we kept parentheses for sending parameter.
Yeah, just because sending the parameter.
So blank parentheses, if I keep it add task, will it give an error or it is okay?
No, it will not throw error.
Okay.
It should not throw error. Let me check. It doesn't throw error. And now let's say I want to delete this. You can see that has been deleted. So let's say I will add 5. You can see that here the task array has now 3 elements. And if I want to remove this task 4, I'll click on the delete, and that will be deleted from there. So what I did is, like, I added an event listener with this button, delete task, and that event. So what I'm doing here, I am passing the index, the current index of the li element, and then passing it to the delete task method. So and what I'm doing there is, like, I'm removing the element on the index, on that index, from the tasks array. So once you remove that, that will be removed from the task. So, and that will be reflected on the UI, because view is reactive.
So what does splice mean?
Splice is a method splice is a method on the array. It's a splice in JavaScript. So this is the array method. The splice method changes the content of the array by removing or replacing existing element. So we are removing the existing element. So what it takes, it will take, so if you will give 3 arguments, it will go to, I mean, the first one is the index, and the second one is the number of elements, and the third one is the, like, if you want to replace it with some element, then you will have to pass the third element. So you can check this splice method on the array. This is the inbuilt method in the JavaScript.
Sir,
Sir, when I execute this push and splice, it is giving an error. Actually, we require to install something, or is it
No,
there?
no,
Yeah.
it's from the JavaScript, so you don't have to require. I mean, you don't have to write anything.
Okay. Right.
sir, in this case, every element has a distinct index, right?
Yes,
Then how it will delete 2 if I make this one to 2 or 3?
this one.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll write 3, it will remove 3 elements.
But every element has the distinct index, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is the number of elements. This argument is the number of elements.
Can we check, sir?
Let's say I'll write 7. So if you will, let me. Uh, 7, and I'll delete this. Everything will be deleted because I have deleted 7 elements from starting from that index. So there
Okay,
was a bit of-
starting from that index.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So this is the number of elements. So I wanted to remove only one element. That's why I wrote 1. This is the index. So this is the index from where you want to remove, and this is the number of elements you want to remove. Okay. So now we know how to remove the element. Now, other than methods, data, and there are several other options which you can use. Like the one is computed property. So the computed property is like, this is the derived property. Derived property means this is the property which you can use inside your template, but it is derived from the already existing properties, like already existing data. So we have, if you see, we have 2 already existing data, the tasks and the current tasks, right? So let's say I want to know how many tasks are there in this tasks array. So what we can do, we can create a property which will be based on these tasks. Okay, so that is already existing property. So we have a data task. So let me write that number of tasks, and what it will return this dot tasks dot length. And let's say I want to write it here in the div as div and number of task.
Sir, should it always be a function, or it can be a
Yeah,
variable?
no, it should be a function. So whatever the function will return will be the value of that variable.
Okay, sir. So if I assign as a variable, then it will compute only once, and then it will not update. Is it like that? When I'm doing count is equal to count colon this task dot len, then actually it is updating when I'm adding the task, but it is not updating when I'm deleting the task.
Okay. So if you'll add,
It's not a function, sir. It's just a statement. Just count colon is equal. Yeah.
understood. I mean, this is just a property.
Yeah.
So it doesn't update once you delete the task.
Yes, sir. It's not updating. Maybe there is a error in my code.
Okay, but as far as I know, it should be a function, and whatever this function will return will be the value of this property.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. I will check, sir. No problem.
Okay.
So, sir, so whatever is written inside computed should be a function. Is that what you're implying, sir?
Yeah, but now I'll have to check.
Okay.
Okay. Number of tasks. So now we have the number of tasks is equal to 2. Let's add one more task 3, and you'll see that so we have the number of tasks has been updated to 3. So you can see that this computed property can be used as a property. You can see that this is like I'm using it as a property, but we are not creating new property. We are deriving a property from the already existing property. That is tasks.
Sir, will you please try deleting it and check the count? Actually, it's not operating.
Okay. Let me delete this. So it says that number of tasks is equal to 2.
Okay. Yeah. There may be a mistake in my code. No.
Okay, what you did with the number of tasks? What are you doing? I don't know actually. So
Actually, I am just returning the this dot task dot length.
tasks.
It's the same code, sir. Just the function name is changing.
Okay. I thought you are creating a new property there.
No, sir. Actually, you created property earlier, but now I am using a function,
Okay.
and okay, I will check later, sir. No problem.
Okay. So you can see that
just one point. So, strangely for components, if you don't define it as a function, like what you have done, both in data as well as computed property, you can't interpolate. You can't use some mustache expression. That's the problem with components.
yes, the data should in the component data should be a function, which will return an object.
If you want to use it as a within this one.
Yeah, the reason behind that is like this view instance is a single instance in the whole application. But if you are creating a component, you will be using it multiple times. So
right,
so you will be creating multiple instance of that component. So based on the return value, each component may have the different kind of data.
Right.
But I'm not sure about this component that in the view instance, like this view constructor, you can use as a property also. Let me check once. So instead of making a function, I will make it a property. Let me check what happens. There is an error. Cannot read property of undefined length. So I don't think it will work. Should always be a
No, sir, it
function.
won't work. It won't work. You have to return it.
Yeah. Okay. So you can derive new property from the already existing properties. So that's what
So
we
if
call.
we keep this number of tasks in methods,
So that will not be reactive. You'll have to trigger it somehow if you are adding it in the methods. But
okay.
this is a new reactive property. That is, you don't have to trigger it. It will be triggered it will be triggered automatically once this value change. Or it can depend on multiple values also. Like let's say you are like creating a function which computed property which will return the full name. So that computed property will depend on the first name and last name. So whenever you will change the first name or last name, that computed property will change automatically. This is the reactive property. So whenever this length will change, the task.length will change, the value of this property will automatically change. You don't have to do anything. View is doing for you.
And the method is not a reactive property.
No, method is a function, and this is a property defined in terms of function. SE. I mean, method is a function which you will invoke by triggering some event. This is not computed automatically. So see, if you see add task and delete task, these are the two functions which I am triggering on click on these buttons. So I'll have to invoke these functions. But the computed property, we call it property because this acts as a property, but we write it in terms of the function, and whatever this function will return will be the value of that property. Like see, number of tasks, we are creating a property number of tasks which we are using here, and this function, and we are writing it in terms of function. So whatever this function is returning is the value of number of tasks. So this function will return the length of the task. So the value of number of tasks will be the length of the task. Understood? The value of the computer property will be whatever this function returns. Is it clear now?
Yes.
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So now you know how you can derive new properties based on the property which you already have. So now there is one more concept. The important concept is watcher. So let's say you want to watch some property. Watch some property means, let's say you want to track the change in some property and take some action. Like I'll explain you. Watch, and these watchers, and the name of each watcher will be the name of the property. So let's say I am creating a watcher for this current task. So I'll have the name of this watcher should be exactly the name of the property. So whenever this current task property will change, this function will be triggered automatically. And this current task will be provided new value and old value. So what I'm saying, that you are watching this current task property here. Okay, and so once you change this current task, that will be this function will be triggered, and that will be provided two parameters, new value and old value. So whatever the old value was and whatever the new value is. So if you want to take some action, you can take some action. Like let's say I want this name, the task name to not to be more than 5 words long. What I'm trying to say is like old new value if new value dot length greater than 5, alert length task and not be more than 5. So what will happen? So whenever you will write this current, whenever you will change this current task, this function will be triggered always, and it will check whether the new task, which the value of the current task is greater than 5, then it will pop up an alert that length of the task cannot be more than 5. Let's go and see the demo. Right. You can see that as soon as it goes past the 5, it is like showing this alert box.
Sir, so here the name of the function should be as the name of the data.
Property.
Oh, okay, sir.
Okay, this says that you are watching this property current task.
Sir,
Yes.
value and old value are like inbuilt defined or what, sir? Because we have not declared it anywhere.
No, I'll log both. Console.
Like from where it is accessing that.
Okay, new value and old value. So the view is automatically passing this new value and old value. See, that initially the value of the current task is null. So whenever you will write something inside this input box, the value of the current task will change, right?
Yes, sir.
So the current task will change. So it will have old value that was before
Null.
the change.
Null.
Yeah, and then let's say I have written A there, then the new value will be A.
Okay.
And the old value will be null. So let me show it here in the console. Let's refresh this and let's write something. So if you write T, you can see that the new value is T and the old value is null. So let's say I have written A, then you can see that the old value is T and the new value is TA.
Okay, so basically this old value and new value are associated with that watch property. Like we can access it without even defining it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I mean, this
they are inbuilt, right, sir?
Yeah, this is being passed by the view.
Okay, sir, understood.
Can we change the names also, like different names instead of old value, new value?
Yes, yes. The first argument will be, let me change the new val if I'll write, and old val, it will break because I'll have to change everywhere. And it will still work the same. The only thing you'll have to keep in mind that the first argument is the old new value and the second argument is the old value. You see, it's the same thing. You can choose the name whatever you want.
Yeah, okay. The variable name doesn't matter. It's just the first argument is the new value and the second argument is the old value.
Old value, yeah, correct.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So now what we will do and we will discuss how we can add the style in our HTML elements using the view. like the one sec. Okay, now let's say we want to add some style in our HTML element, which is reactive. Which is reactive means in based on certain condition that class will be applied, and if that I'll explain you by giving some demo. So let's say what I want to do. So we have a list of tasks, and I want to add one more button which will say mark it as a complete. So once I will click on the mark it as a complete, it will make the that task it will change the style of that task. Let's say I want to implement this kind of behavior. So how I can do this is like I'll add one button. I'll copy this button. Control V, and I'll remove this one and style. Now I'll add the class. Class is equal to, and what I will do, I will bind I'll add a class list here. Let's say, no, button should not be. Click. So I'll create one more variable here, is complete. Is complete. And I'll start with the false value. And this variable indicates whether the task is complete or not. And once you'll click on this button, it will make that value. So what I will do, I will, once some user click on that button, it will mark the value as, no, this cannot be done, because it will be applied on all the values. Complete, false. Complete, false. So what I'm trying to do here, so I have added one more property in the task is complete, so which indicates whether the task has been complete or not. And I want to make the text of that task which has the complete is equal to true by red. I want to display that task in red, and I don't want to change the style of that task which has the complete property false. So I want to associate a conditional class here, not in the button. Class click equal to mark as complete, and I'll pass the index because we will need that index in order to get that task. And I'll define a new method, mark as complete, and it will take the index. And it will take the index this dot task, and then I'll go to the index dot complete equal to true. So when someone will click on this button, it will trigger this function mark as complete, and what this mark as complete does, it will take the index and get the object with that index and make the complete value as true. That is,
You have added it to the delete button only, I guess, sir. I mean, will it affect or
Yeah.
is it okay?
no, it will not affect.
Okay.
So let's see whether it is working or not. I'll go to the view, and I have to, okay, the name is should be changed. Mark as complete. So now if I'll click on here, you can see we have two, and if I'll click and if I will
The function is not updating the method add task is not added the complete false or complete.
So it will work. It happens
On line
sometimes
24.
with
Sir, we have to add this equal to false or right complete colon false. That is not added actually in that
So one sec, I
object
just
property.
want to see the task array, and this is the object, but it should have two values now, complete and
so sometimes it happens. Sir,
Sir,
but
because
it will work. You can try running it.
okay. It's not showing it here. That's why.
Yeah, sometimes the view extension doesn't work properly.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah, I can see the false and true here now. So once I will click on this mark as complete, it should not changing. I don't know whether it's the problem with the extension or. Okay, let's complete the thing and then we'll check. So this task index, let me log this. Dot log. So once I'll click on this, yeah, and then I'll log the same thing. Yeah, it's changing. So now what I want to do, I will define a style in our HTML, and that style complete color red. So if I'll go here and what I will do, I will add a class here. Class is equal to, and it should be an object, and complete, and then I'll pass the variable name is here. Is complete. So what will happen if the value of this is complete is true? I'll just check whether the okay. Task dot complete. If the value of this task dot complete is false, then it will not add this complete complete class. It will not apply this complete class on the span element. If this is true, then it will apply this complete class on this span element. So let's check whether it works. You can see that this task has become
So
red.
can you explain why does this work like when it's true? Like,
I mean, this is done by the view. So how you can apply a class on an element conditionally.
so
Conditionally means, so if you want to apply some class, if you want to apply conditionally, and if you will change the value of this, I mean, this complete class will be applied on this span element only when this value is true.
and like before class we put a colon before it. Like we have
Yeah, this is called a binding, one-way binding.
Mm.
So you are binding this class object with this object.
So can you show the HTML file, like what changes were made?
Okay, so in the HTML we didn't do anything. We just created a complete class. I mean, complete style for the complete class.
Okay, sir.
We defined the style for the complete class.
Okay, sir.
And what I'm trying to explain here, you can bind this class attribute with an object, and this class will only be applied when this value is true, else not applied. Understood? So what I'm saying that you can associate a class conditionally to an element.
Sir, this is equal to saying that task.complete equals to true.
Yeah. So I mean, this value can be true or false.
Mhm.
So initially it was false, but when we clicked on this mark as complete, that value become true. So when this value will become true, this class will be applied, and if it's false, this will not be applied.
Can you write something like that task.complete equals to true, or something like that? Double equals to true or triple equals to true, something like that.
Is this what you want?
Oh, task.complete. Yeah, task.complete equals to true.
Is equal to true.
Uh-huh.
I mean, this is not allowed. This itself is a value. See, so for the first iteration, the value of the task is this object.
Okay.
And so this object has a complete property which we are referring here.
Okay.
So if the value of task.complete is false, then this complete class will not be applied on this span element. and if this complete class value is true, then this will be applied. So initially it's false, so you will see that initially both are in the black color, but as soon as I click on the mark as complete, what is happening, that mark as complete function, what does it do is, like, it will take the index and change the complete property of that element. So see this with the mark as complete method, you are passing the index. You can think of it as a loop, like v for is kind of loop. This is a for loop. So you are iterating over this task.
So like you applied binding in class, like with the calling, like when to apply binding and when not to apply binding, like how to do that.
See, if you'll remove this class, so you cannot pass I mean, what you are doing here, whenever you are applying the binding here, you are binding that attribute with some JavaScript object. But if you are not binding it, this will not be applied. If you remove this, I mean, this will be treated as a string.
Okay, right.
So see, this will not work, because now we have not written the colon here, so the view doesn't know that this is the JavaScript. But once we will write this colon sign, the view knows that this class is a JavaScript. I mean, this is a JavaScript object, and it will act accordingly. I'll send you the class binding in Vue.js.
Thank you,
You
sir.
can refer to this document.
Okay, sir.
Sir, would you please explain this complete colon task dot complete? Is it necessary to write it within this curly braces?
Yes.
And why it is complete colon? Can I write?
Because this is an object. This is a JavaScript object. You are associating a JavaScript object with the class. And so this is an object, and this object has a property complete, which has some value, which is related to some data. In our case, it is related to this one.
Okay. And then the class will fetch it takes a parameter, and depending on the value, it will apply the style. Is it?
Yeah, if the value of the task.complete is true, it will apply that class. If it's false, it will not apply that class.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I think it will be useful if you just show the DOM that is being generated out of this too.
Okay.
I think it will become clearer that way.
Okay. Okay, it doesn't show here. Show some JavaScript code.
I think if you inspect it, it will show.
Okay.
It will show other elements.
Here.
No, yeah, in the div class, the div.
Yeah. Placeholder task, the UL li.
Right. So there is no class in task 1 and task 3. The
Task
class
2,
is
and
became.
if I'll click on the mark as complete, to change that. So
Yeah,
you can
now
see
it's
that the
complete.
task class is will complete.
Right. So if it is true, then this equal to complete gets added to the DOM automatically.
So is it good now?
Yes, sir. Clear. Thanks.
Okay, this is how you can add some class, like conditional class. Conditional class means you can add the class and remove the class based on some condition. Now we will talk about the components in Vue. So what we have discussed till now is like how you can create a computed property based on the already existing property, and how you can watch a property, and if you want to take some action when that property change, you can write that instruction inside this watcher, and once that property will change, that action will be triggered. Now let's create the component. So now what I will see in our application, what we have is like we have similar kind of elements, like this task 1 and task 3 looks exactly the same. The only thing changing is the data. This is the li element, this is also the li element, and this li element has the data task 1, and this li element has the data task 3. So these are the similar kind of elements, but they have the different data. So what we can do, we can create a single component, and we can use those component again and again if the elements are of the same type, like of the same kind, and only thing is changing is the data. See, I'll explain you. Vue dot component, and let's say header. Let's create a header component, and the way you create a component, you use the Vue dot component method, the component method on Vue, and the first parameter is the name of the component. You give your component a name, and the second is the options object. See, the creating a component is similar to creating a Vue instance. So in the component also you pass a options object. So let's say template, and I'll call div class div welcome to to-do app. Welcome to to-do app. And now that we have created a component, header component, what we can do, we can add this component. We can use this component header, and this will take all the this will take the template of this component and will add it here. So wherever you have used it. So if I'll go, well, you can see that the welcome to To-Do app is here. So what I am trying to explain it here, you can create the components and use it in some other component. Understood? Let's, for now, this component has only one line, but let's say this component, I mean, we have a bigger component. We can create as big component as we want, and we have to do, we have to just add that component like a HTML tag. So in some sense, we are creating the HTML tags and using it everywhere else. So wherever we want to use, you can write it as a tag, and everything from everything in the template of that component will be like added in the parent component. So from the parent and child component, what I'm trying to say is like, so this header component is being used inside the template of this view component. So the view component is the parent of this header component. Understood what is child component and header component? I mean, creating a component in Vue is extremely simple. All you have to do, you will have to use the view.component and then give it a name and pass the like options of it, and you can specify all those options which were in the Vue constructor in this component also. Let's say I want to use the data, but you'll have to keep in mind that whenever you are creating a component, the data should always be a function which should return an object. Return, let's say I'll call it name Narendra, and instead of using a static content, I will be writing the name here. So, and let's go here, and you can see that the Narendra is being written here. So each component will have its own data, its own template, and all those, like it can have this computed property, it can have its watchers.
So
Creating,
not,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Like the data in Vue, like we cannot access those data values in the Vue object, like in the Vue component.
Can you come again?
So like we have two data now. Like one data is in Vue component, another data is in a new Vue object. So
Yeah.
we cannot, so component cannot access the new Vue's data, right?
No, these two are the separate entities. They can access the data, but they cannot access it directly.
Okay. And so like in the new
By directly, what I'm trying to say is you cannot write the this dot name inside this Vue constructor and you will be able to access it. I mean,
this,
there is a way, but you cannot access it directly.
okay.
These are two isolated components.
Yes, sir. And in 14 number line, you've written the word header, but like you haven't like put header and then like in two brackets, like you have written div tag, like two brackets. You have just written
This
one.
is a self-closing. This is self-closing tag. You can see that the input is also self-closing. So you can use it as a self-closing if you are not passing any data to the component.
Or we can use both as well, like those two brackets, one as
Yeah, you can use it. Yes. So if you'll use it, this will also work.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. But if you have option that you can use it as a self-closing, I'll always choose the self-closing because it's clean. Okay, so one thing you'll have, I think one thing I wanted to bring your attention is like, if you see that I have not mentioned the view, the components option inside this view constructor. So the component which you create using the view.component method is called the global component. That is, you don't have to, this component is available globally. But there is another kind of component which is called the local component, which can only be used once you register that component. I'll explain it. So let's say I'll create a new object, const, I'll call it footer, and then I just have to write the options object here. Template, and then div plus div. This is footer. This is footer. So if I want to use this component inside our view constructor, it will not reflect. Let's say after everything, I will add this footer. You will not see any change in here. But if I will go and register this component, footer component inside our view constructor, components, and then inside the components, I'll write the footer, and now if I'll go and check, you can see that this is footer written here. That is, you cannot use this local component without registering it. That's why we call it local component. If you want, you can change the name of this footer. Let's say footer comp, and now this will not reflect here because I have changed the name. And if I will go here and instead of footer comp, and now you'll see that this is being reflected here. The way you register, you have two ways to register your component. You register your component inside the components option, and either you can, so in this components, what you do, you give a key value pair, where the key is the name of the component and value is the key, and value is the options object. So what you are doing here, you are creating an object. And when you are registering it inside the components option, it will treat the key as a name of the component, and that object as a options object of that component. So if you go here, the way we created the global component, we use the view.component and gave it a name. So this is the name, and we passed a options object here. And in the local, what we are doing, we are creating an options object, and when we are registering, we are giving it a name. So when we are registering, we are giving it a name. And if you will not give it a name, the name and the value, the name of the component and the options object of the component will be the same. It will treat footer as the name of that component also. Any question?
Sir, will you please show the code that you have written for class?
Class.
Yeah, down, sir. The view part, the definition part.
Can you tell me the line number?
The definition of this class complete task.
Okay.
How it has been used in the code.
Here.
Okay. So
I just created a complete class. I defined the style of the complete class.
okay, sir.
Any question in the component? So I'll summarize it again. So you can have two kinds of component. First is global component, and the global component, you don't have to register it. You don't have to register a global component before using it. So you can directly use it. And the way you create the global component is you use the view.component method, and the first parameter is the name of the component, and the second parameter is the options object, which is similar to the options object which we passed in the view constructor. And the second type of view component is the local component. So what the way you create the local component is like you create a options object and you register that component in the components option. So let's do one thing. I want to use this footer component inside this global component also. So what I will do, I have the data. What I will do, I'll use the components option, and I will write the footer. Now we have I can use this component inside this template. So name, after that name, I will footer. And if I'll go here, there is some error. Okay, we have not. Let's. Now you can see that Narendra and this is footer. So I can use these components. I can use these components inside any component. So for now we have a root component which has been created by this view constructor, and we have a global component which we are calling it header, and we have a footer component which is the local component. And this footer component, this local component, is being used inside this root component and this header component. So how we are using it? We are using this components option to declare that we are going to use this component. And then here also we have declared that we are going to use this footer component inside the template. And then once we have registered it, we can use this inside this component also.
So in line number 15, you have not given the component name for the footer.
Yeah, so if you will not give the component name, it will take this as a component name.
Oh.
Okay, you don't always have to give the component name. It's optional.
Okay, sir.
So here it requires to be a property and not a written an object. So like data should return as an object and it's a function, but components is just a single line.
No. I mean, this line is similar to this one.
Oh, okay. So components need not be function here. I mean, in the line 9, the data is functions.
Line 9. The
Yeah,
data is function.
yeah. But say here it's not a
Component.
function.
No. Components is not required to be function.
Oh, okay, okay.
Components is a option in which you register all your components which you are going to use inside the template.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So if you want,
is there a guideline as to when you should use global component versus a local component? I mean, is there like best practice or something like that?
I mean, the best practice would be if some component you want to use in like in multiple places, then you can define it as a global.
Okay.
And
So the only extra work is that you have to register it every time if you said declare it as local, right? That's
yes.
But then the advantage is we can choose which
component will
component
use
you want to include this in. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So now, but if we start defining all our component in a single file, it will be very hard to manage. So what we will do? So I will remove this global component. Okay, I'll leave it. So what I will do? I will create a new folder here and call it components, and we will create all our components inside this components folder. So the first thing I will do, I will create a footer.js, and I'll copy this app.js. I don't have to give it a name. Code default. So in the JavaScript, you can create modules and you can export variables from those modules. Not just variables, you can export all kind of objects. Like here we are exporting this object. So this is just to refactor your application. So you don't want to write all your components inside a single file. It will be very large. So what you would do, you would generally create multiple files in which you will store all your components, and wherever you want to use those components, you will import those components and use it there. So like, let's say inside the components, we have created one module footer.js, and whenever some module will import this footer.js, it will get this object. So now if I'll go in the app.js, I'll remove this. And I'll write the import statement here, import footer from components / footer.js. From the footer.js, what I have done, I have imported. So if you'll use the export default, this will be exported by default. So whenever you will import this module, this object will be exported, and I am storing this object inside this footer variable. So that is what we did, and what we are doing right now is the same thing. The only thing is we are writing that object inside the separate module. So we are trying to separate our code in multiple modules.
So here the tag that I'll be using is footer only because I've used import footer as the name, right?
Okay, this name.
Yeah, that is the name I'll have to use for tagging, right? Later, like you've used below. for the self-closing tags.
Yes,
and all
yes.
that. Okay.
So I didn't change the name because like I have written all
Right.
these things by the name of the footer. So if I want, I can change the name, but then
Okay.
I'll have to change everywhere.
Sure, sure. No, I'm just trying to understand. No worries.
Okay. And one more thing is required in order to change. In order to use this ES6 module system, like you will have to write the type is equal to module. Then only this module system will work. Now you can see that nothing has changed. And we are able to like factor our application. So we wrote this footer, let's say this component is very large. And if we'll keep writing it in one file, I mean, that will be a disaster. So you will have to know a way how to refactor your application. So this is how you do. What you will do, you will create a object and then just write export default. So whenever you will import from this module, the footer.js module, this object will be exported, and you can store it in any variable. For me, I have written it inside the footer. If I want, I can store it in the footer also, but then I'll have to change in many places. So that's why I store it inside the footer. So inside this footer, we have this object, and everything else is the same. The only thing is we are not writing this footer inside this file, we are writing it in somewhere else, and we are importing it. Now, see, the main reason we create components is like if we have some like we have some code which is we have some elements which are exactly the same, they only differ in the data. Then we can create a component and we'll just keep adding those components in our main file. Like if you see here, then you can see that these are the similar. If you will add the task 5, okay, we'll add button, then you can see these are pretty similar things. These are pretty similar functions, like elements. So what you can do, you can create a component, and based on the data inside the component, it will generate a template, and you can use that generated template inside your main component where you want to use. For us, what we will do, we will take this whole thing, and make it as a component, and then we will, instead of using all these 3 lines, what we will do, we will just use the component name here. So let's create a task component here, task.js. I'll just go and copy all these things. I will, okay. Default template, write it here, and so you just have to keep this in mind that each template should have a single root. Single root means it should be wrapped inside a single component, a single element. Like I am wrapping it inside the div. If I'll paste this here, let's remove these two lines for now. And we have a span element. Let's remove it for now. We will copy and paste it here. Just first we will see how this task, I mean, how this component system works. Data, task. No, I'll have to return it. Return should be an object. Task. Name. Task 5. And then what I will do, I will import it from the import task from dot task.js, and let's say I want to add it here. Task. So what will happen? Task did not register. So we'll have to register this task here inside the components. And now if I'll go and see, problem now. Cannot read properties of undefined.
It should be string.
Yeah. You can see that the task 5 is here. But what we don't want to have, I mean, we want to pass this data. We want to pass this task data to our child component. See, we want to use the component, but we also want to pass the data from parent to child. By parent, I mean, so when we are using the component, we are using it in some template, in the template of some component. So that component is the parent. I mean, I'll explain it from this example. So we are using this task component inside this root component. So this root component is the parent and this task component is the child. So what I'm trying to say here, so what we want to pass this task data to this child and want to display that data. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we will do, we will, let's say, copy and paste here. Task, and the way you pass the data is like you bind the task with the property task, and you receive that. This is how you pass the data to the child component. You create a property called task. I mean, this can be the name, both the name are the same, but it should not matter. So you create.
So the name in V4 is the name for the task. I mean,
this
as a variable.
This and this should match.
But this colon task is that we are going to use inside the task.
Yeah, this task will be going to use inside this task as a prompt.
Okay. This task which is inside this data will not matter. Will it throw any error?
One sec. Let me write this. PRO prop props, and then I'll write the task. It should be, should I change the name? I don't know. I'll remove this data here and use this props. So the props is also a property, but it comes from the parent. Let me write it child task. Child task. So let me write it child task. So the props is child task, and I will write it child task. And inside here, so I want to pass the child task, and I want to pass the task which I am getting here. So I want to pass this task to the to the child, this child task, and the prop name will be child task. So he will receive that value inside this child task, and then you can use this inside this template. Let me check whether it works. Yeah, you can see that it works. See, let me explain again. So what happened is, see, the data for the task is inside this this root component, right? So, and as we know that inside any component we cannot directly access the data of any other component. These are, and all the components are isolated. So we need a way to pass the data from parent to child and child to parent. So in our case, in the first case, what we are trying to do here is like we are trying to pass the data from parent to child. So what we did, we created a props option and a variable inside this props option, and we have already defined it. And what we will do, we will pass this child task. We'll pass this child task. See, if you don't want, if you will not bind it with this, and you can directly pass the, you can directly pass the, you can directly pass an element, an object here, and you will see doesn't show. Okay. So the problem is like this is an object, so you'll have to bind it. JavaScript syntax. And if I will go, you can see that the Narendra is being passed everywhere. So what I did, so this object has been passed to the child class, to the child component as a child task prop. See, if I will
we just make it name, then you can send the correction.
yeah, I mean in the task, if I'm sending the task, what I'm doing is like I'm sending these objects. I'm sending these objects,
Yes.
right? The value of this task is these objects. So in the first
In this case,
iteration,
you don't need to
this
bind.
object will pass. Yeah. This object will pass, and in the second iteration, this object will be passed.
Do you have to bind in this case also?
Yeah. No, it's not necessary. Sometimes you don't have to buy. Let's say let's say I'll be using, use the div class div, and I'll use the name here, and if I'll go here And from the task, I'll pass the name Narendra, and if I can see that name is equal to Narendra. I think it was not required to pass bind. You can pass it as a property. Okay. And let's bind this, and then let's see what happens. Does it work? And there is no point in binding because it's not a JavaScript.
Binding is required only if it has to be an object. That's fine.
Yeah, this is an object. It is only required when it is an object, and like in some sense you want to bind some data with the like components data. A bind means binding an HTML element with the data.
So, but I think you can also do without binding child task. You can actually send tasks as it is, like a variable, I think. And then in the okay, in this case, task is multiple objects, right? Okay.
No, if you'll remove this,
yeah, you can send task. Right?
You will treat it as a string.
Without quotes.
Without quotes.
Yeah, without quotes, and then there you write task dot name.
I mean, it will not work, right?
Yeah, see there in the component, you write task dot name. Here you can send the entire object as it is.
One sec. Let me remove this first. Then see, nothing is changed.
Sir, what are you trying to do here?
So I'm trying to see whether I can. Yeah, one sec. So why this task is showing Narendra? It should. The task.js child task name. I mean, I think this name is being. This child task is not being received there. But you can see that this says Narendra only. Let me remove this name from here.
So I think it is tasks. Like there will be an S after task.
Child task. I'll copy this. And if I'll child task, and this is the task. Okay, task 1 is there. And let me remove all these things. Now I'll have to remove it. Let's see what happens. See the task 1 and task 3, but we have not passed. So what you are saying that if I remove this one, this will also work. I think it will work.
I think the idea is you do binding on each other, but to bind it with variable
some-
or an object that you have, like in data or something like that.
Yes. So the idea is you are binding a property name with the data object,
Correct.
like with some data. So the value of this child task will become whatever the value of this
Task
task is. And in the first iteration, the value of the task is this one.
Correct.
Yeah. And then
Whereas if you don't put quotes, then you don't have to bind it. You just directly send the object itself.
yeah, this one.
Yeah, and without binding.
No, I
That
don't
will
think it will work.
That will work. Too.
No, it doesn't work.
It's displayed. No.
Narendra is displayed, is not the task.
Narendra is being displayed, but if I'll this but I'll have to bind this with this task.
Right.
This is related to the syntax. So the syntax is you write the prop. See, this prop is similar to all this class and placeholder, all these things. So it's similar to the HTML attributes which you use.
No, sir. But I think this name Narendra is not being displayed. It's actually the task dot name only is being displayed. I think in the HTML that you have,
No,
that name is not being used anywhere.
no, this is being displayed here.
No, that's right.
Sir,
What I'm saying is, even without binding, you can actually send the task object directly. It will still work, is what I'm saying. If you don't bind the child task.
Yeah. No.
sir, sir, can I say binding is similar to referring that particular object, and here the name is only a value, a string, literal.
The binding. Can you come again? What?
Here we are binding this child task
Child
using
task?
colon to the
Yeah.
task. So
Yeah.
I am saying that this is a reference to the task, but here name is equal to the name Narendra. That is actually the literal. So literal, I think, will not require this binding.
No. I mean, this is not like this. If you will write, if you will bind the name with this Narendra, then we will start searching for this Narendra in your data option, or in the components, or in the computed property. Like the view will think that this is some object. Like
Oh,
some
okay. Yeah.
But if you will not use this binding,
Then it's just a literal.
view thinks that this is just a string.
Okay. Yeah.
So, sir, just to be clear, I think if you can go to the task.js for a minute.
Okay.
You're not displaying. If you can just comment out or remove that name, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then if you can just go back to the main.
Yeah, this is app.js.
Yeah, app.js. So now this will display, right? This will display Narendra's name, right?
No. This is not displaying the Narendra name.
It will not, because the div we removed, right?
No, but there is another div. If you go to task.js,
Yeah.
What is the span doing? It is doing child.name.
No, this is just a container for this child task.name.
Correct, but it has to display .name, right?
Yeah, so it's displaying now. I mean, what we are sending here, this child task, we are binding this child task to the task. That is, we are binding it with this object.
Oh, okay, that's display task on a task. That's fine. So now what I'm saying is, if you remove the binding child task,
and
remove the quotes also, remove the quotes also, and just put task. I'm saying this will also.
I don't think it will work. No, it will not work. Because see, in the syntax, you will have to use this quotation mark. Yeah, so either you can send the string, or you can bind
Bind
it
it.
with some object.
So I can't send it like a direct object.
If you'll send it like this, yeah, if you'll send it like this, it will treat this task as a string,
Yes, that I
and
understand.
it will not display.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I got. I just thought you could also directly send it as an object. Okay. So you have to bind it. That's all.
And what I'm trying to suggest here by passing the name is like you don't always have to bind it with some data object. This props, you don't have to bind it with some. You can pass some string also. If you just want to pass the string, you don't have to use the binding. The binding is only used when you want to bind that prop with some object. See, is
Yes,
it clear
got
now?
that bit. Yeah, that I got.
Okay. So we'll discuss rest of the things like how you can pass. So in this session, we learned how to pass the data from parent to child. And in the next session, we'll learn how to pass the data from child to parent. And if we'll have time, we'll discuss about the router also. Okay, I'll push all this code on the GitHub. Okay, I'll post this code. I will not be able to push it here. Okay. Any question?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you very much for the session, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Very useful.
Sir, I have a query, sir. Actually, when I am running now, it is opening in a different environment. Actually, it is coming like HTML page. Could I share my screen?
Are you allowed to share the screen? Let me stop this recording because it will unnecessarily extend.
Yeah.